My loves, I am so happy and so pleased to announce that this episode is brought to you by my very own company, Savage Chocolates, which is all about cultivating a more loving relationship to your body and to food. You know, we don't really believe in guilty pleasure. We just believe in pleasure done well. Right? Have you ever had that candy bar or thing of ice cream and you eat it and you're like, wait, I don't remember eating that. Wait, where'd that go? Well, that's why I created Savage Chocolates, because I know the importance of pleasure. And I think that we don't slow down enough to actually experience it. And so if you are wanting to eat mindfully, if you are wanting to be reminded of how to actually experience your pleasure, then please go to www.savagelosangeles.com to order your goods. All right, you guys, let's get to it.
Scott, I want to hear more about the headache situation.
So I had something called cluster headache, which, as I did research, because it was so overwhelming, I got it when I was 26 years old. It was so overwhelming that I thought I was going to die. It went from I thought I was going to die to please don't die to please kill me. And it went there. It went pretty fast from one side to the other. It kind of felt like some variation of brain freeze, but like ramped up on steroids.
It is.
To a really degree. But then it was hot and it felt like a nail in my eye. It was awful. It was brutal.
Jesus.
And
is there a reason for that? I mean, like, do people get those from something specific, or?
I think for most people, there's a perfect storm of both parents having some sort of headache condition, something there.
Got it.
So I went through the way they work is you get them for a certain amount of time and then they just disappear. But then in the meantime, I developed, which was probably psychosomatic, and I don't know the answer if it can be, but I developed a pretty bad chronic migraine condition too. So I was in a state of pretty significant pain for 15 years. And I was addicted to pain pills. No one really knew. I was taking, I don't know, maybe 15 pain pills a day kind of thing.
Oh shit, Scott.
Somewhere between 8 and 15. Yeah. And they were like barbiturate pain pills, and I was taking shots, and I had oxygen tanks, and I was drinking a lot of alcohol. I was drinking Red Bulls like they were going out of style. I was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. I was in it.
It was like uppers, downers, uppers, downers, uppers, downers.
Yeah. Cause the Red Bulls would abort the headache. But then like the come down from the Red Bulls was a thing. And then there was the coffee. I mean, it was all of it. I was in the car business. I was a really high functioning car salesman. I was selling, between 50 and 100 cars every month. And
that's insane.
Yeah, it was a lot. So I was really just high stress, high anxiety, high pressure, high pain, high victim. Got married when I was like 30 something, had a couple kids. That marriage was toxic by all accounts. I learned a lot from that. Yeah. And then while I was in the marriage, I ended up getting into psychedelic work.
I want to hear about that.
Well, I had done a bunch of research about my headaches, and it turned out that psychedelics was the only thing that had ever been proven to break the cycle of the cluster headache.
Wow. Any specific type of psychedelic?
They had studied LSD and they had studied psilocybin, and both had been moderately to more successful with the abortion of a headache cycle. So you could be in the middle of the 12-week cycle, we'll call it. A week in, you take a dose of mushrooms, and it can just stop it in its tracks.
Wow.
So I was like, well, I need to be a part of that. So I had met someone at a party for one of my kids, and they introduced me to a facilitator, and I ended up starting that work, and my life changed pretty instantly from that. Yeah. I started to really study the human condition from then on. I got into a more healthy relationship with myself. I was still being extremely destructive. I mean, I was really destructive. But I started reading, and I started, listening to people, to talks about the human condition. I started discovering people. I started having a relationship with source. I started really
Who
caring.
were some of your teachers? Who were some of the people you were reading? What was that about?
It was a lot of elders. I started reading, they were audiobooks.
Yeah. Let's be clear, everybody. Audio version.
Let's be clear.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the time stamp on it all, but there was Alison Armstrong that was super helpful.
Yeah.
There was a woman named Pat Allen that was super helpful.
Dr. Pat Allen. Yes.
Sadhguru was super helpful for me.
Cool.
Who else has been? Esther Hicks has been super helpful. So, but I wasn't really learning that. I learned a lot from Alison Armstrong. I really credit her with teaching me a lot about relationship and about the male condition and the masculine condition, and the feminine condition. And she used different words to describe it, but conscious and unconscious behaviors.
Like patterns.
And she described it as the human animal and the human spirit. Conscious being the human spirit and unconscious being the human animal. And the human animal really being in an aggressive state, being in a survival state. And that sent me down a whole consciousness thing. I started doing TM. I met my wife, Deanna, at a psychedelic ceremony. And she'll tell you the story, which is silly from her. For me, it doesn't sound quite as silly, but I was going through how I was going to leave this toxic marriage. And my wife has very little room for victim. And I was very victim at the time. I felt like I felt like the world was doing me and life was doing me, and instead of me doing life. And it wasn't good. So she pretty well just kind of smacked me in the head, and she's like, "Hey, how long are you going to play this victim card? When are you going to do something about the problem? Why don't you just start, put one foot in front of the other, and let's just get on with it."
She's such a badass like that. She's just like, "Yep, we're just gonna go right to it."
Yeah. And so we then got to the next ceremony, or there was some things. I was separating from my wife, and we got to the next ceremony, and we ended up connecting in a pretty crazy cosmic way, and have really been together ever since. We have a child together, and she's definitely one of, if not the greatest teacher that I have.
For sure.
While she challenges me constantly, and when I want to solve things in the 3D world, she doesn't let me, because she doesn't believe that things get solved there. And,
well, she's so opposite of you, like you were saying earlier, how you struggle with like the feminine, like she is the embodiment of the feminine.
Yes.
The quintessential.
Yes. And very powerful in that space. And so I still struggle with trusting that. I get super prickly. I become a porcupine, and, I'll push her away sometimes, and she doesn't tolerate it. So,
fantastic.
It's great. It's great for me to work through that. And also, I have a way of taking things from my world and using them to help other people in their world.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. So I have a strange connection to, something happens to me in the morning and I have 2 sessions in the afternoon and they just both happen to be going through the thing that happened to me that morning.
Yeah, of course.
It happens quite often to me.
Yeah.
So I left the car. I left the car dealership at the beginning of last year during COVID. Continued to help my old clients, but really started focusing on helping people find self-realization, find the part that they play in relationship. And that's relationship to all things. That's not just relationship to a significant, that's relationship to people, that's relationship to source, that's relationship to actions, to reactions, in business. It's really a fairly universal thing. What happens somewhere happens everywhere. So
the way we do anything, the way we do everything.
Yeah. So, so that's pretty much, I'm sure I left out a lot of things, but that covers a lot of it.
No, I think that makes perfect sense. I love it. The journey with psychedelics, with the headaches, with the marriage, with everything. It's a lot of mess that you've...
Oh, and the headaches are gone.
And the headaches are gone.
The headaches have been gone for 4.5 years.
Damn.
Yeah. Which I can't really describe like how crazy that is in the world.
Yeah. Well, I'm really, really grateful because you have important things to do and share. Mm-hmm. And I think being in that much chaos, it's like I know the kind of older iteration of you constantly needed something to push up against. And I feel like that was probably like the zenith of that, like the highest point of like, we're just going to smash your head, like something to push up against in life. Like you really had like a physical representation of that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, very much so.
I'm so glad that that's not necessarily what's going on anymore.
Yeah. It's, and then there's this whole like trusting this new peace thing. So now I feel like I'm at peace and I feel so, I mean, it's such a difference and it's in such a short amount of time relatively. It's been 4 years since I really started making a drastic change and started really focusing on meditating and focusing on source and focusing on relationship and my part and really focusing. Mm-hmm. And, as everything is changing and I'm becoming more willing. I mean, some mornings I wake up and I'm like, I can't believe it. Like, I can't believe that life is, that I thought life was that and life is this.
Right. Well, you and I were talking about this the other day, like the discomfort of being comfortable, right? Like your life got more comfortable in many aspects, like out of physical pain, like out of a toxic relationship, out of a job that you hate. But also like sitting in that is like, wait, I'm not used to that. Like it's almost uncomfortable to be comfortable. Do you feel like that?
Super uncomfortable. Yeah. I mean, it's like, first of all, I also stopped drinking, smoking, drinking Red Bull, taking pills and all the other shit. Like it's all gone. I still do psychedelics, but I feel like we could get into that later.
That's a whole, again, some things make you remember and some things make you forget, right? Like psychedelics make you remember. It's like, hold on. Yeah.
And one really feels like a running towards something and the other thing is sort of a running away from something. And
yes,
there's a lot of pattern there. But I think that's the thing that feels weird is all these things that were pattern that were really how I operated for so long. That like I at 5 o'clock or at 6 o'clock or whatever it was, I did this, and I'm such a creature of habit that in changing the habit, it feels uncomfortable. But I've become more willing to be welcoming to the discomfort,
welcoming in the unwelcome.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I've changed my relationship to myself, and I've developed a relationship to the ethereal me, the non 3D world me, and started to really have faith in that, and started to really understand that more and more. And I think it's something that I'll probably be developing for the rest of my life. I don't think it's masterable, unless I wanted to go be a monk somewhere, which I don't. But also,
you'd make a fierce monk. You'd make a fierce monk.
I look like a monk.
You do a little bit.
Yeah. And I've learned how to slow down. Like when my nervous system starts speeding up, I've learned how to slow it down. And there's techniques that I teach people, just simple techniques, simple metaphors, simple visualizations, that I use on myself, that I'll just come up with. And then, it could be as simple as putting your hands on your chest and feeling you with yourself. Something that
we do that right now.
Yeah. Something that'll bind you to yourself and make you feel like you're giving yourself a hug, and that you feel cared for when you have your hands on your chest.
Yeah.
Also, you doing it to yourself, it can help you put down the armor. We all spend a lot of our time manufacturing armor to protect us, but also, as we build walls, we're also not letting the good in. We're not letting anything in. If you're not letting anything in, you're not letting the good in as well. So changing the concept of walls into boundaries, into ways to find the door. This leads you towards a door, so that you can be responsible for the things that you let in, so that you can intentionally let in the things that serve the story that you want your life to be. So to rewrite your future.
God, that's so important. It's like floodgates, it's like, if you're open, then it's floodgates, versus like, okay, I'm open, but I have boundaries and I know where I stop and you start. That's such a distinction that we're not taught.
Somebody said it once, like you can't drink water out of a fire hose.
Right.
Yeah. So
oh my God, that image is so good.
Right. Someone said that to me. I don't remember who it was. It might have been Sean.
Nice.
Yeah. So, if I was to break down really what it is that I do, is that I give people an understanding of how to connect with presence, with this exact moment. I think it's clear to me, and people haven't necessarily thought about it, how anxiety, especially where we happen to live, anxiety of a future, of what it's going to look like tomorrow, a day from now, a month from now, is a very real controller of many of our lives.
Totally.
There's nothing you can do about tomorrow. Tomorrow's just going to happen. And the other thing that happens is a depression with regards to looking back at failure, at perceived failures or perceived inequities. That's where the victim thing really comes from, is from the past. And so the front-facing thing is really a hallucination, and the back-facing thing is dead space. And so really,
we're spending a lot of time there.
A lot of time in dead space.
Right.
The only thing that really matters is the awareness of the exact moment that you're occupying right now. And it's not a measurable amount of time, because it's instantaneous, like the wind on your face. However, the more time that you spend in awareness to that space, and the more time you spend almost in reverence to that space, the more full expression you can have with yourself.
I have this image. You just brought up an image. The day before my mom died, she wanted to be outside. And it was early in the morning and no one else was awake. So she walked every single day she was alive. There was never a day where she couldn't walk or couldn't get out of bed, but it was hard. So I was like, you know what? I don't want to try to get you down the stairs. How about I just put you by the window and I'll open the window and it'll be kind of like being outside, and I'll go make you coffee and it'll be really nice. And it's like an image that I meditate on now, of her sitting by the window with the breeze on her face. And it was like, I've never seen her more alive. I've never seen her more present. I've never seen her more embodied than just sitting there with the breeze on her face. Mm-hmm. It's like, we're always like, God, fuck, I'm like the queen of go, go, go. Like the queen of runaway, like I'm so good at it. Yeah. Which is part of why I teach it. Right.
Well, you have one of the best hiding places there is.
Totally.
Because you hide in teaching people not to hide.
Yeah. Exactly.
You're such a brilliant teacher, and you're so good at cheering people along in their growth and in their experience of life. And you're so good at making people feel really good about themselves and accepting themselves and stopping the apologies for being themselves and all the things. And my reflection is that I see, a good portion of it is so that you don't have to get fully present with your shit.
Totally.
The thing is, Alexa, if you're fully present, there is no shit. There's only the presence. There's only the moment.
Right. No, and I have moments of that and I'm like, oh, but pattern, right?
Right. So for you, I would tell you, just create some real touchstones to bring you back into now, to suck you back into now. It could be chanting, it could be meditating, it could be your hands on your chest, it could be, my name's Alexa, I live in Los Angeles, it's Tuesday, there's 6 trees around me, and you just, boom, I'm here.
Drop in.
So I'm aware of this moment. I'm myself. I'm the universe having a human experience, and I'm here.
Yes. And
the more of a relationship and tethered you are to that, the less shit there is to deal with. And then from there, we can start to intentionally feel how we want it to feel. Right. So then we can start thinking about, okay, so I want a relationship. Okay, that's great. Wonderful. It's all relationships are just projections of you. Great. How do you want that to feel?
Right.
Really, how do you want it to feel? Like get super specific.
Yeah. I want my relationship to feel expansive. I want it to feel easy. I want it to feel authentic. I want it to feel connected. I want it to feel sexy. I want it to feel powerful.
Now close your eyes and feel that for just a second. Feel what expansive, feel what's sexy, feel it in your belly. Take a deep breath and relax into your body. And feel what that ease feels like, the intimacy. Now take another deep breath. And when you open your eyes, tell me what that felt like in your belly.
Tingly.
Okay. So now you've seen the mountaintop. Now you just need to keep feeling what the mountaintop feels like. When you wake up in the morning and you're getting out of bed, go get tingly. It's like putting your toe in freezing cold water. At the beginning, it's going to be a little jarring. It's new. Put your toe in that same cold water 5 minutes from now. It's a little easier. We're getting a little more accustomed to it.
Yes.
Put it in there 5 minutes after that. Yeah, whatever. This feels pretty familiar. It feels kind of okay.
Yeah.
And so now you're not gonna recoil as much when it's shown to you, and you're gonna have a familiarity to the tingle. And so when it shows up, that's the one. That's coming from the truest me.
Yes.
And so while manifesting is a real thing, also the familiarity with what you want and what your higher you wants allows for that to come to you.
So real, because what I'm familiar with is not that.
Also, what you're familiar with not being that is going to present to you more of what you're familiar with.
Right.
What you're familiar with doesn't necessarily mean what serves the story you want to live by.
Exactly. Yeah.
You see?
Completely. Yeah. It goes back to that comfortable being uncomfortable thing. It's like me being uncomfortable is really comfortable for me in many aspects of my life, including relationship.
Yeah.
Like feeling forsaken is like comfortable. It's crazy town.
So tell me how that feels in your body.
It feels victimy and it feels heavy.
Okay. So.
And it feels young, like it feels very infantilized. Like, how could you, like, why would you do that to me? Like, I'm smart, like pouty. Like it's this like 5-year-old that's like, how, like, why wouldn't you choose me? You know, it's just like weird victim-y thing that happens.
Mm-hmm. And if you had to describe the feeling in your belly with an actual feeling,
it feels like a heaviness.
Okay, now take the heaviness.
Like the bottom dropped out. Like
take the heaviness. Go back, close your eyes, take the heaviness. Now replace it with the tingle.
Yeah.
So from that space, you have an intentionality, and you're starting to live your life, and you're starting to tell your story, the story that you want to tell to yourself, not the story that you unconsciously or even compulsively tell yourself.
Right. The stories that were like imprinted, tattooed on our brain before we even had the choice.
So I actually call that your relationship accent. So when you were born, as if you were born in Australia, you learned to speak with an accent to us. Well, it's the same with how you learn to relate. You learned to relate before you had a choice of how you were going to relate. You learned to relate. Your unconscious way of relating was modeled to you by your parents, by their relationship to each other, to themselves, to the universe, to stress, to anxiety. And then that is fed to you before you ever have a choice. That's your
amazing. It's amazing that any of us connect. It's a fucking miracle.
Right. So here's the deal. So let's just say you're an actor and you need to learn a different accent. Okay. You need to study. You need to learn the different ways to say different words. You need to learn how to communicate with people authentically sounding with a new way. And then you need to learn how to use it in a fight, so to speak. You need to learn how to use it when shit gets real.
Wow.
And so your relationship to yourself has this same accent that you now have to take control over. You now don't fall into the unconsciousness of the accent.
Right.
You see?
Kaufman, that's fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's super legit. That is that's incredible. And you're so right. Like after a while, that accent just, it's like why people move to London and all of a sudden they like have an accent once they move there. It's not because they're like assholes. Like they're just around it and that's their new normal. And
they're immersed in a different way of being.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with what we can do with, instead of having the armor up, having the armor down with boundaries, or instead of attracting this, attracting that. That's dope.
Yeah. So I think, for you, you've been through a lot, and you've been through a lot lately, and you've been through, and you've done it with an incredible amount of grace. And you also blow a lot of smoke off of yourself by leading with it. And I think that I think that the hands on the chest, just that, and the feeling of you embracing yourself. When you were talking about like, oh, you can do it like this or this or this or this, that was the one I was like, that would be mine. Yeah. Well, I think, man, how many of us are looking for a hug, especially these days?
Dude, I'm quarantined by myself. I have a French bulldog who snores like a motherfucker, but
like a motherfucker that day.
Dude, he's so loud today too.
It's so loud.
But he's so cute.
Yeah.
So cute.
So he is really cute. So the thing is that what you seek, which is this intimacy, which you're clearly, you can give it to yourself and familiarize yourself with it. You totally can give it to yourself. The word that always comes to mind, and if you or anybody ever works with me, the word fulfillment is always going to be a big one, because, a long time ago, I was listening to a TM teacher, and he was talking about fulfillment and how, and this really, really rung true to me, how people spend their lives collecting shit, collecting people, collecting so that they can feel fulfillment or fulfilled. Mm. And when we get it right, it's when we become fulfillment, when we start bringing that with us, when we stop looking to bring things in to become it, and we become it and then give it away. Mm. And the more of a relationship we have to ourselves, with the understanding that if we go seek out source, we find ourselves. And if we go seek out ourselves, we find source. We can go from being in the import business to then being in the export business. And then you start bringing that with you.
That was really beautifully said.
Yeah.
Got to import first though.
It's an interesting thing, because I don't know if you have to import it. I feel like you have to cultivate it. It's like putting it in. You have to plant the seeds, and then you have to nurture the seeds, and you have to give it enough sunlight, and you have to give it care, and you have to sing to it, and you have to play with it, dance with it, and all the things. And then this beautiful tree is going to grow. And eventually the tree that grows is going to break down the bullshit and take over. And now you can take this beautiful tree with you.
Do you feel like we have to have our shit together before we get into partnerships? Like in that way?
I think you have to understand that your partnership will be a reflection of where you're at while you're in it. If you're in an abusive relationship, that will be because you abuse yourself. If you're in a bully victim relationship, you need to look at where the bully lives inside of you. If you're in a bully victim relationship, I can promise you that in some parts of the relationship, you're the victim, but in others, you're the bully.
Totally. God, that's so good.
Yeah. So I think that a relationship is not going to solve your problems.
No.
A relationship is going to, you both have to be whole. Yeah. You both got to be whole. Sure.
Totally. Yeah. Mirrors, mirrors, mirrors everywhere. It's a house of goddamn mirrors, Kaufman.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is.
What would you say to people who want to be in partnership, but are struggling to make that a thing?
I think it really goes to looking inward I think it goes to connecting to how it's going to feel past tense once you're in the relationship. I think a really good practice of either meditation, walking, being in solitude. I think that silence is an incredible tool to cultivating a relationship. I think that learning how to be quiet with yourself allows you to bring up the programs that serve you, which includes relationship. I think that learning how to be really kind to yourself. I think that people are super impatient with themselves. And I think that, again, as how you relate to yourself is how you're going to relate to a partner. I think that kindness is something that maybe is a little overlooked and a little underutilized. I have a few couples that I work with that I have to repeatedly say, is this how you would treat a friend? Mm. Would you treat a friend the way you treat this person? Would you treat a friend the way you treat yourself?
Right.
And so many times the answer is no.
Of course.
So I think it starts with a real relationship to yourself. Take yourself out on a date. Make yourself feel, make yourself feel accepted, pretty, loved. I think it's men are looking mostly to be accepted. Now, accepted having two meanings. One, to be accepted for who they are, but one, to be accepted into the feminine. I think that while women, for obvious reasons, want to be adored and revered and honored in a certain way, I think that men, it's not just accepted as a man. It's equally accepted into the feminine. I think that men, especially in today's world, are having a hard time with the feminine, with the Me Too thing. They don't know where they land. Yeah. Men were raised thinking something that's different than it is now. I think that there's so many great conversations that you and I could have, one, from the masculine side and the feminine side, to discuss where the lines are.
Right. But I think we're all still making them up in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But I think that there are people that are being punished for things that happened before these rules were made.
Right.
Men and women. I think we need to be really mindful of that, because it could end up backfiring where people don't feel safe to be themselves in a relationship.
Right.
Because they don't know, there's doubt.
Of course. Well, I think just, again, like you're talking about this kind of communication around it, like, is this okay? Is this not okay? It's so tricky. It's so, you're right. Like there are just blurred lines. Like people don't know what can be said, what can be done. It's kind of like, it's like so hideous, but it's kind of like, now that marijuana is legal, like you look at all those people that were selling it for decades and are still in prison for something that now like white people are making millions and millions and millions of dollars off of. It's like there's a lot of damage that's done when the rules
really
change.
It's really tricky. Yeah. It's really tricky. It's, the moral line moves as evolution moves. Evolution goes from less sophisticated to more sophisticated in the grand arc of it. Right. There's setbacks, but if you look at an arc, like kind of like a stock market, it always heads north.
Right.
Eventually it goes north. It's the same thing with evolution, and we do need to be mindful of people that, yes, it was illegal while it happened, but we're here now.
Yeah. And I guess that goes back to kind of like the power of forgiveness and the power of compassion and the power of like, well, when you know better, you do better. I think it's Hugo is amazing.
I heard that.
That was not me farting, ladies and gentlemen. That was my dog. But yeah, it's like that power of like, wow, just doing the best we can. We're moving through.
Yeah, it's that dog is something else.
He moved back. Like I literally put him over there and he moved back.
Yeah, you're likable.
He likes my vibe.
He likes your vibe. Yes. I mean, there's compassion. There has to be accountability. Yes. I think that, but I think there can be accountability with compassion.
Agreed.
I think you can have both.
They can absolutely coexist. And I think they should.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of comfort in the making people wrong. I think it's really easy to make people wrong.
Well, I feel like that anger, resentment, blame thing is actually a lot easier than actually looking at like what's underneath that. Like anytime we're in that blame game, it's like, well, what's underneath the blame? Oh, it's probably like grief or probably like sadness or fear.
Well, if you want to, I mean, if you really want to find some peace fast, take your anxiety, take your anger, take your quick wit, take your and really sit with it, and then trace it back to the primary feeling that you're feeling, which is going to be not that, because those would be linked to fear, sadness. And so sit with the fear and the sadness and lean into it.
Right. Because all that, it's like, those are the bodyguards.
Yeah. That's the armor.
Anger. Yeah.
That's the armor. Those are the bricks in the wall, that anger and that, the quick wit is the one that I teach a lot to couples who are both really smart. When you have people who, they love to banter off each other because it's really sexy in the beginning. Those wits become wolves, and one takes a swipe at the other. And if you connect and get a little neck wound, it stops being fun. Fast.
Yeah. Real fast. I've been in that for sure, but it's sexy at the beginning.
Yeah. As fast as you can transition from the wit into acceptance and kindness, the faster you can do that. If it's somebody you're going to be in any kind of long-term committed relationship with, I would be very careful to move into the kindness. Because if you stay in the wit, I promise you, one too many drinks, it's going to turn into a wolf and someone's going to get hurt.
Boom.
Yeah. It's going to happen.
So real. Mm-hmm. So real. I feel like you have so much insight on all of these relationship things. I feel like we have to have you back on because it's already been an hour. I don't know how that happened.
You just say what?
And so where can we connect to you, and how can we work with you one-on-one? Or I know you also have a men's team. How can we do that?
I do. I have a men's team that I started with my wife's ex-husband, who is my best friend. Story for another time. That's something that's closed for now. However, if you want to get to me, you can go to thebridge.la is my website. I can be reached, and my email is scott@thebridge.la. And then there's an Instagram that's the.bridge or thebridge.la. I think it's the.bridge.la.
I'll confirm it and put it in the show notes.
Cool.
Scott, thank you for
I feel like I want one more thing. Like, do you have anything else that you want to share with us today?
First of all, I want to apologize if I rambled, because I'm a professional rambler. But also,
I would say that's a no.
Okay. Take a moment, if you're listening to this, sit in a chair in silence, put your hands on your chest, breathe, and think about the word fulfillment and how that word feels in your body. And from that word and from that feeling, be as kind to yourself as you can. We're living through crazy times. We've got your back.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for carving out the time to listen to this wisdom, to listen to all this goodness. Once again, gentle reminder to please check out savagelosangeles.com to learn more about my new company that I'm so proud of. I hope it inspires you to create and cultivate a life that you dig. And also, if you are down and have, 10 seconds, then please give this podcast a 5-star review on iTunes. Super easy. Just give it 5 stars, maybe say a few kind words. And if you dug it, please share it with your friends. I would be over the moon with gratitude. All right. You guys are the bee's knees. Much love. Stay savage.